Our Distinguished Service Award recipient hail from California, the Golden State, the state that handed Jeremy Lin to New York Knickerbocker. I say thank you. U.S. Representative Bob Filner was born in the Squirrel Hill area of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. While attending Cornell University in mid-1961, he and other students took Greyhound buses into Mississippi and became the Freedom Riders. He was arrested and incarcerated for 2 months, eventually being released when the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the case against him. In his own word, excuse me, Mr. Filner stated that, this is the time to drink some water. Mr. Filner stated that, sorry about this. Mr. Filner stated in 1987 interview, I have always felt that if you think something should be changed, it's your responsibility to actively pursue that change. After moving to San Diego, after achieving his doctorate degree, he became a history professor at San Diego State University. However, he got involved in politics, first as a member of the local school board, then on to San Diego City Council. In 1992, with the creation of a new U.S. congressional district, Mr. Filner decided to run for national office. He won election to Congress with 57% of the vote. Since then, he has faced no substantiated opposition in his 9 re-election bids, once running unopposed. A strong and vocal advocate for veterans, Representative Filner has served as a member of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs every session since he first came to Capitol Hill. At the start of the 110th Congress, he was tapped to serve as chairman of the committee, a position he retained until the completion of the 111th Congress. During his tenure as committee chairman, Representative Filner presided over significant legislation to provide historic budget increases for veterans, secure advance appropriations for the VA, expand access to VA health care, and improve health services for all veterans. Last summer, Representative Filner announced he was running as a candidate for mayor of the city of San Diego. This year's recipient of the American Legion's Distinguished Public Service Award is from the 51st District of the state of California and a true friend of veterans, the Honorable Bob Filner.
The award reads, Distinguished Public Service Award, presented to the Honorable Bob Filner, 51st District of California, U.S. House of Representatives. In recognition of your long and distinguished career in public service, your authorship and support for the Veterans Health Care Budget Reform and Transparency Act of 2009, which mandates advance appropriations for the Department of Veterans Affairs medical care accounts, and your tenacious commitment to our nation's veterans and their families during your tenure in Congress, and especially as chairman and as ranking member of the House Veterans Affairs Committee. Signed, Daniel S. Wheeler, National Adjutant, and Fang A. Wong, National Commander. Presented in Washington, D.C., February 28, 2012.
Oh, you, sir.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Legionnaires.
Good morning.
So nice to be here, and it's extremely humbling to receive an award like this, because I'm working for you all, and you are all the heroes. But since the commander mentioned my notorious start of my career in jail, I have to say one thing which most people don't know. The list of people who got this award ahead of me is incredibly distinguished. I mean, it's amazing to see the kind of people who the Legion has honored. One of those is someone you may remember, Sonny Montgomery, former chairman of our committee from Mississippi, legendary. figure, and author of the Montgomery GI Bill. He arrested me in Mississippi in 1961. He was head of the National Guard there, and it was actually for my protection. Otherwise, I probably would have been beaten up before this. But Sonny and I became real friends. I became like his pet on the committee, and it's hard to believe that I succeeded him at some point as chairman of our committee. So put that in your history book also. But I want to say something, since the commander did mention I would be leaving Congress at the end of this year, hopefully to be mayor of San Diego. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about the journey that I took that allowed me to do some things. How many people here how many of you are Vietnam vets? Good percentage, I would say. Let me say, I was one of those who protested the war. And when you all came back, I didn't spit on you, but we did not recognize your heroism. We did not recognize the sacrifice. We did not recognize, as a nation, the price that you all paid. And I have learned about that, and it has affected everything I do every day in Congress. And we paid a terrible price for this nation and individuals and your families by not treating you properly. Half of the homeless on the street tonight are Vietnam vets. A terrible statistic, and one that this country has got to remember at all times. There have been more deaths by suicide of Vietnam vets than died in the original war. I mean, that's over 55,000. We did not do it right. And there have been efforts to say welcome home and say thank you. But there are some real good, important things we have to do, not just say thank you. We got to say thank you again and again. By the way, we seem to be repeating some of the mistakes of the past. I don't know if we have to have a parade or what, but the young people coming back from Iraq ought to be saying thank you, thank you, thank you, welcome home, welcome home, welcome home. The best thing we could do, by the way, is give them a job. You know, that would be a welcome home. But let's take just one way of saying to the Vietnam vets, it's time that we gave you some peace and really welcomed you home. The secretary, I heard, said something about Agent Orange, and there have been some changes. But the law says you got to have your boots on the ground. What about, the blue waters off Vietnam, the blue skies above? What about Laos and Cambodia? What about Guam? What about places in the United States where shipments were opened up and people got affected by Agent Orange? I have two pieces of legislation. One of them says all of those folks are eligible for disability and for the kind of payments we have to do to help people get healthy. Everybody should be eligible. That would say thank you. That would say welcome home. But I think we should go further than that. The secretary said something. I didn't want to debate him, I guess, but he said we're well on the way to dealing with the backlog. I mean, I know the Legion just met, all your VSOs just met, and you guys are overwhelmed with that, with the claims. I mean, we need to give your VSOs some more help here, rather than saying the backlog is just about finished. But there's a great way to really diminish that backlog. I don't know, a couple 100,000 of them are Agent Orange claims. They have been in the pipeline for how long? 30 years? 40 years? People get sicker fighting the VA than they did from the original illness. It is time to say thank you by honoring all those Agent Orange claims now. Just grant them. If there's medical evidence, the VSOs have helped. Let's just say it's time for some peace. for our Vietnam vets. Let's grant those Agent Orange claims. Let's give people some final sense of closure. Let's bring down the backlog by 250,000 and say, finally, thank you. Welcome home. It's time we did this. You know, they say, well, that costs too much. Hello? Hello? How can we afford not to? I mean, let's say it cost $1 billion, maybe $2 billion. You know what our debt is? 14 trillion. Are you going to tell me you're going to balance the budget on the backs of our Vietnam vets by not granting these claims? That's ridiculous, and we ought to be saying that around the whole country, you know? Yeah, let's bring down the debt, but not on the backs of these veterans. Come on. Come on. So we have a long way to go on these claims, by the way. I was glad to hear everything's fine. You know, they increased last year. They were close to 1 million again. And there's only one way to deal with it, in my opinion. All the Legionnaire, your Washington staff doesn't necessarily agree with me on this one. I'll just for disclosure. But you know, the IRS was once the most dysfunctional agency in America. You know, you filed your tax return and you didn't know when you were getting anything or anything. Now, if you have a refund coming, you get it in 3 weeks. How did they do that? Because they send you the check based on your tax return, and it's subject to audit. Why can't we do the claims that way? If you have been helped, if your medical information there, and a VSO officer from the American Legion helped you put together that claim, let's accept it. Subject to audit. Let's accept it. I can bring down the claims backlog overnight to close to zero. Yes, you will have to substantiate your claim. And yes, we can have fraud. But if the Legion is working on it with its VSOs that you have trained and have done such a great job, they're so overwhelmed now, I've been told some of them have to turn off their phones because they're getting so many calls. Let's help them, not put more work in their path. But if you have a Legion VSO who has helped put together that claim, we're not going to hold you liable or anything, Commander. But let's accept the claim. It's subject to audit. We'll get to it. And then we can distinguish between what we want to do and what we have. That's the only way. These guys are trying to bring down the backlog by what they claim brute force. You know, they hired, 10,000 more people, and the claims doubled. It's not going to do it. Let's honor the Vietnam vets by getting those Agent Orange claims off the table. Let's honor all of our vets by accepting a lot of their claims. There are certain areas we can just really, that they don't require all the kind of work that, especially, again, if your VSOs have helped that. And lastly, let's welcome home everybody in this country who has served our nation by making sure they have a job and are contributing. Thank you so much for this award. It keeps me going. I've learned so much from all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's give Representative Filner a big round of applause. Ms. Filner, on a personal notice, I would really appreciate it if you reconsider your move to San Diego. We need you in Washington.
You know, by the way, the first thing I'm going to do is open up. We have a military town in San Diego. But you know what our unemployment rate for returning vets are? It's over 15%. That's horrendous. So we're opening up a Vietnam job center in the mayor's office when I'm elected. And we're going to make sure that every one of those employers who said they support the troops, they support the military, to make sure that they hire you all when you get home. That's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Thank you again.